Welcome to episode 54, I believe it is, of Angel in the Afternoon. It's a little different for this episode as I'm pre-recording this. It's right now 9:40 in the morning because I can't really go live until Friday. There's a lot I want to get to because Friday's episode is going to be extremely loaded as well. Friday's episode, so I got to talk about everything I want to talk about last week now, and I also want to talk about because on Friday today we're going to get closing arguments from Donald Trump's first trial in New York, the hush money trial. So most likely by Friday we'll have some sort of resolution. So that's gonna have to be discussed on Friday, and I just don't have the time to talk about everything I want to talk about all in one episode. And Sunday I'm doing a Major League Baseball review of the first 2 months of the season for the Yankees and the Braves. Excuse me, the Red Sox and we'll discuss Angel Hernandez finally retiring after over 30 years of being an umpire. So that's the baseball stuff. That's Sunday. For now, this is an episode that should have aired on Friday, but I couldn't get to it because of reasons. We just didn't have the time. I didn't have the time on Friday. So yeah, this is that episode of Angel in the Afternoon. And today we'll be talking about Assange, getting his trial extended or getting another opportunity to appeal because of the First Amendment. I'll give you my thoughts on that. Then we'll be discussing Israel and Palestine, that situation, and we'll be getting started that episode with that, Israel and Palestine. Most of the episode we spent on that, all the updates and everything has gone on there. So you can bear with me 1 second. Greatly appreciate it. And so let's do that. Let's go to bear with me 1 second. This is kind of new. This set up for a restream. There we go. Actually, I'll make it bigger. That could help. So yes, this is Kareem Khan, the head prosecutor for the ICC, and this is the right video. I don't think. No, it isn't. Something else. It's this one. Sorry about that. Yeah, the ICC's chief prosecutor explained to CNN why he applied for arrest warrants for Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant. So here we go.
We're here at the ICC. You are today announcing that you are applying for arrest warrants for top military and political leadership in the Israel-Gaza war since the October 7th events. First and foremost, explain to me exactly what you're asking for and who you are charging.
Today, Christian, we've applied for warrants to the pretrial chamber of the International Criminal Court in relation to 3 individuals that are Hamas members. Sinwar, who's in charge on the ground.
That's Yahya Sinwar?
Absolutely. Daif, who's in charge of the Al-Qasim Brigade. And Hania, who's one of their political bureau based in Doha.
What are the charges?
The charges are extermination, murder, taking of hostages, rape and sexual assault in detention. So these are the key crimes that are alleged to have been committed by these 3 individuals. The world was shocked on the 7th of October when people were ripped from their bedrooms, from their homes, from the different kibbutzim in Israel. And people have suffered enormously, and we have a variety of evidence to support the applications that we've submitted to the judges.
You have also issued warrants against the top political and military leadership of the government of the State of Israel.
We've applied for warrants. Of course, the judges must determine whether or not to issue them, but we've applied today. We'll apply for warrants for Prime Minister Netanyahu and also Minister of Defence Gallant for the crimes of causing extermination, causing starvation as a method of war, including the denial of humanitarian relief supplies, deliberately targeting civilians in conflict. Of the individual is the protection of babies. I mean, these are fundamental American values that should engender bipartisan support. Now, of course, this situation, unfortunately, lies on the San Andreas fault of international politics and strategic interests. And of course, I've had some elected leaders speak to me and be very blunt. This court is built for Africa and for thugs like Putin, was what one senior leader told me. We don't view it like that. This court is the legacy of Nuremberg. This court is a sad indictment of humanity. This court should be the triumph of law over power and brute force. Grab what you can, take what you want, do what you will. And we're going to simply be, we're not going to be dissuaded by threats or any other activities, because in the end we have to fulfill our responsibilities as prosecutors, as the men and women of the office, as judges, as the registry.
Yeah, well, I need to apologize. I accidentally muted my mic, and I went into a dissertation, and I'm sure nobody heard because my mic was mute. Basically, what I was saying is, as you guys, hold on, it says that Karim Khan, as the video says, reveals that a senior leader told him in private that the ICC is built for Africa and thugs like Putin and not for the West and its allies like Israel. So what I was saying is how basically this is senior leaders saying how don't come after the West. Do not, excuse me, don't you dare come after the West. You're gonna go out. You fine. You go after thugs like Putin and Russia. In Russia, you can go after African nation leaders and their war crimes, but don't you fucking dare come after the West. Don't, because we'll come at you with we'll bring you our worst sanctions and maybe some other stuff, because trust us, we'll do whatever it takes to protect us, the U.S. and our allies, which include obviously Israel, which is why people are like that's the rest of the outrage in Washington. I'll get to it later in the show where we have the U.S. already threatening sanctions, and they're huffing and puffing. Trust me, if these prosecutions happen and these warrants are actually issued, then there's going to be consequences and repercussions. So let's see. Yeah, so we have a situation where the U.S. Let me get to my next video here. We have a meltdown here from Benjamin Netanyahu. I just have to find the correct video before I. Here we go. So here we go. This is Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel. The outrageous decision by the ICC prosecutor Karim Khan to seek arrest warrants against the democratically elected leaders of Israel is a moral outrage of historic proportions. It will cast an everlasting mark of shame on the international court. So let's see what he has to say for himself.
The outrageous decision by the ICC prosecutor Karim Khan to seek arrest warrants against the democratically elected leaders of Israel is a moral outrage of historic proportions. It will cast an everlasting mark of shame on the international court. Israel is waging a just war against Hamas, a genocide.
This fucker says all this with a straight face, by the way. So I go back and forth on whether he really believes this or he's full of crap. But if he really believes what he's saying, or he's full of crap, but I just don't know. I mean, I go back and forth on it.
Terrorist organization that perpetrated the worst attack on the Jewish people since the Holocaust. Hamas massacred 1,200 Jews, raped Jewish women, burned Jewish babies, took hundreds hostage. Now, in the face of these horrors, Mr. Khan creates a twisted and false moral equivalence between the leaders of Israel and the henchmen of Hamas. This is like creating a moral equivalence after September 11th between President Bush and Osama bin Laden, or during World War II between FDR and Hitler. What a travesty.
He loves to invoke World War II and Hitler in order to hide behind the Holocaust and to justify all his war crimes. He's done it. This is not the first time he's done it. He does it all the time.
Of justice, what a disgrace. The prosecutor's absurd charges against me and Israel's defense minister are merely an attempt to deny Israel the basic right of self-defense. And I assure you of one thing. This attempt will utterly fail. 80 years ago, the Jewish people were totally defenseless against our enemies. Those days are over. Now the Jewish people have a state, and we have an army to defend our state.
That sounds like a threat against the ICC and any international body that wants to come after Netanyahu and the senior leaders of the IDF. So that's how this comes across to me.
Notwithstanding the blood libels Mr. Khan has leveled, Israel will...
Blood libel. You see, another thing that the Zionists loves to invoke. They're doing blood libel against us. It's outrageous.
Will continue to wage this war in full compliance with international law. We will continue to take unprecedented measures to get innocent civilians out of harm's way and to ensure that humanitarian assistance reaches those in need in Gaza. Mr. Khan also sets a dangerous precedent that undermines every democracy's right to defend itself against terror organizations and aggressors. The ICC has no jurisdiction over Israel, and Mr. Khan's actions will not stop us from waging our just war against Hamas. But Mr. Khan's abuse of this authority will turn the ICC into nothing more than a farce. He's doing something else. He is callously pouring gasoline on the fires of anti-Semitism that are raging across the world. Through this incendiary decision, Mr. Khan takes his place among the great anti-Semites in modern times.
Wait.
Stands alongside...
Wait, did he say that Karim Khan takes his place as one of the greatest anti-Semites of our time? I didn't watch this whole speech. I just watched some of it before I went on air, and I mean, it's just ridiculous. How could he say that with a freaking straight face? Like, this Karim Khan, chief prosecutor at ICC, yes, he's one of the greatest anti-Semites of our time. Guys, trust us. Believe me. You know, it's horrible. You know, he's a horrifying human being. So he's the biggest anti-Semite because he dared to come after me and my government for war crimes that we committed.
Besides those infamous German judges who donned their robes and upheld laws that denied the Jewish people their most basic rights and enabled the Nazis to perpetrate the worst crime in history. 2 weeks ago, on Holocaust Memorial Day, I pledged this: no amount of pressure and no decision in any international forum will prevent Israel from defending itself against those who seek our destruction. To all the enemies of Israel, including their collaborators in The Hague, I renew that pledge today. Israel will wage our war against Hamas until that war is won, because never again is now.
All right. So that was Benjamin Netanyahu, melting down and trying to threaten the ICC and Karim Khan and smearing him as an anti-Semite and all those horrifying, all those ridiculous accusations of Netanyahu. So let's see. Let me get to my next video. Oops. Let's see MSNBC meltdown here. MSNBC has a little clip for us here. The International Criminal Court is seeking arrest warrants for Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar. I butchered his first name, Yahya Sinwar, as well as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on charges of war crime and crimes against humanity. So this is a quick one. They're not really melting down, but this is just reporting it. All right, so let's see.
Breaking news right now about the region. Perhaps more symbolic than not, but the International Criminal Court just now announced it is seeking arrest warrants for Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar, but also for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. So the ICC is saying they are going to charge Benjamin Netanyahu with war crimes and crimes against humanity for the aftermath of the war there, for what's happened in Gaza, as well as the head of Hamas for what happened on October 7th. So a little bit of breaking news right now about the region, perhaps more
related. All right, so yeah, there you go. And you I'm sure you guys heard Mika Brzezinski like, really? Okay, you can go after Yahya Sinwar all you want, but Netanyahu? How dare you? You know what I mean? Like, really? Against Netanyahu as well? So yeah, do we have U.S. meltdowns now for the over the possibility of indictments or warrants against Netanyahu, Israeli Prime Minister. The U.S. doesn't care about Yahya Sinwar. I just butchered his first name again, but we'll go with it. They don't care about the warrants against Sinwar. They only care about Netanyahu and covering up and protecting his ass. So, oops, let me try actually doing that. All right, here we go. The ICC has no jurisdiction. We do. State spokesman Miller. So this is if Palestinians have complaints, they go to Israeli courts. Miller, we have jurisdiction. Lee, sorry, how do you have jurisdiction? Again, none of this makes no sense, but desperation from the United States here.
Focus on jurisdiction for a second. Who does have jurisdiction here?
So the government of Israel has jurisdiction
over the occupied territory.
We have jurisdiction
over Gaza, which is not entirely occupied.
They have jurisdiction into looking at the actions by their
so
military
the
personnel.
Palestinians, if they have a complaint, they have to bring it to Israeli courts.
We have jurisdiction, and we
you have
with the use of our equipment.
I'm sorry.
How
do you have
with the use of our military equipment
Matt,
that we have provided?
How do you have jurisdiction?
If you look at the Leahy law, if you look at
that's not jurisdiction in a criminal process. That's
not a criminal process, but it has to do with the determinations that we make in the.
But I mean, it's not a criminal thing, but we still have jurisdiction. Trust us. The ICC has no jurisdiction. We do. We'll go. We'll trust us. Like
policies that flow
but
from
that's
it.
not jurisdiction.
But Matt, long term, you were right that we want to see.
You used to work for DOJ, Matt.
You were
on. U.S. does not have jurisdiction.
There are different. I wasn't referring to criminal jurisdiction, Matt. There are different ways to look at this. Long term, we agree with you that the Palestinian people should be a state that has have the ability to make.
Look how nervous he is. He's like, I mean, come on. I agree with you. A long-term solution is for Palestine to have their own state. But I mean, come on. I mean, give me a break.
These determinations, but that's not where we are today. That's where we're trying to get to.
You were fine with the ICC.
Look how nervous he is. I mean, he's like, yeah, go ahead. You, anybody else but him. He's actually doing real journalism. We can't allow that here in the U.S. I mean, I'm definitely afraid of real journalism. So I've seen that man. I forget that man's name. It says Lee here, but not Robert Lee. But he's done some great reporting and he asks tough questions to the State Department. So, all right. So let's get to some fake outrage here from politicians. Where are we? Okay, here we go. So now I'm going to read you guys this. This is Blinken's statement on let's see. Can you guys see this? Not really, but let me. Oops. Bear with me 1 second. I'm trying to see how to make this bigger. Here we go. Let me actually try sharing this instead. All right, here we go. Yep. This is State Department, the head of the State Department, Tony Blinken's statement. The United States fundamentally rejects the announcement today from prosecutor of the International Criminal Court that he is applying for arrest warrants for senior Israeli officials, together with warrants for Hamas terrorists. We reject the prosecutor's equivalence of Israel with Hamas. It is shameful. Hamas is a brutal terrorist organization that carried out the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust and is still holding dozens of innocent people hostage, including Americans. Again, Israel has also been bombing the shit out of Gaza and killing said hostages. But yeah, the United States doesn't want to talk about that. They just want to talk about how terrible Hamas is. Moreover, the United States has been cleared well before the current conflict. The ICC has no jurisdiction over this matter. The ICC was established by its state parties as a court of limited jurisdiction. Those limits are rooted in principles of complementarity. I butchered that word, but we'll go with it, which does not appear to be applied here. Amid the prosecutor's rush to seek these arrest warrants rather than allowing the Israeli legal system and full timely opportunity to proceed. Yeah, like the Israeli legal system is going to go after Benjamin Netanyahu. Come on. I mean, that's so disingenuous. In other, in other situations, the prosecutor deferred to national investigations and worked with states to allow them time to investigate. The prosecutor did not afford the same opportunity to Israel, which has ongoing investigations to allegations against its personnel. Again, disingenuous, because there's no way that the Israeli government's ever going to discipline its own people, which is the whole point of why the ICC was created. There's also deeply troubling process questions. Despite not being a member of the court, Israel is prepared to cooperate with the prosecutor. Despite not being a member of the court, Israel is prepared to cooperate. Despite not being a member of the court. Remember, I'll get back to that in a minute. In fact, the prosecutor himself was scheduled to visit Israel as early as next week to discuss the investigation and hear from the Israeli government. The prosecutor staff was supposed to land in Israel today to coordinate the visit, not coordinate. Jesus, I need more coffee, obviously. Israel was informed that they did not board their flight around the same time the prosecutor went on cable television to announce the charges. These and other circumstances call into question legitimacy and credibility of this investigation. Fundamentally, this decision does nothing to help and could jeopardize ongoing efforts to reach a ceasefire agreement that would get the hostages out and surge humanitarian assistance in, which are the goals the United States continue to pursue relentlessly. Yeah, and now let me get back to despite not being a member of the court. If you guys actually remember, something called the Rome Treaty, which basically established the International Criminal Court, which the United States is not a party to. Israel's not a party to, which is fine. Okay, fine. If you want to make the argument, well, Israel's not a party to the ICC, which is why they shouldn't have to. These warrants should not be valid because they're not a party to the ICC. Okay, fine. You know who else is not a party to the ICC? Russia. That's right. Remember when all those warrants were issued against the ICC issued warrants against Vladimir Putin for his alleged war crimes in Ukraine? Well, how did the U.S. react? Everybody in Washington was jumping up and down the air, talking about how great the ICC is and how the ICC is doing great work. You know, they're going after war criminals in Africa. They're going after war criminals like Putin and thugs and brutal dictators, you know. Again, excuse me. And but yeah, as soon as the ICC go after Israel, epic meltdown city, as you guys can see here. I'm going to show you more examples here in a moment, but everybody from Blinken to the administration to Congress, senators, I mean, everybody's having a meltdown, ladies and gentlemen. So let's get to, that's the Blinken one. Here we go. Now let's get to AIPAC. This is AIPAC. This is their statement. We strongly condemn the arrest warrants requested by the International Criminal Court prosecutor Karim Khan against Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu and Defense Minister Gallant as morally obscene. Of course, it's morally obscene because by definition, Israel is a good guy. And Hamas and the Palestinians are the bad guys, by definition, here in the West. Israel is a democracy with independent judiciary that is fighting against a war in a moral way. It is the worst case of moral equivalence to suggest that the victims of Hamas terrorist attacks should be treated the same as barbaric perpetrators. Congress should urge the administration to reimpose sanctions on the ICC, and America must insist that other countries not comply with ICC warrants. And we'll get to that in a moment, whether other countries are actually going to comply with these warrants or not. The United States must stand with our ally against this outrageous attempt to isolate and delegitimize the Jewish state. So yeah, I mean, the AIPAC's melting down. I'm not surprised. No one should be surprised because quite frankly, let's see. Here we go. More examples of meltdowns from Congress and stuff. This is Chuck Fleischman, who's apparently a representative somewhere. He represents the 3rd District of Tennessee. He says the International Criminal Court's warrants against Prime Minister Netanyahu and other senior Israeli officials have no basis in law and is purely politically motivated. The United States will always support Israel's right to self-defense. So we're going to see the same talking points over and over again. I mean, I have more. Trust me, I have a lot more. Let's see. This is the warrants. I'll get not that. So we have this video now from Ambassador, the Israeli ambassador to the United States, because I cannot pronounce his name, Gilad Erdan. I butchered his name, but that's his name. That's the way I said it, and we'll move on. What a disgrace. The U.S. Security Council observed a moment of silence today in memory of mass murdering of Iranian President Raisi. I actually get into this more a little later, but I'll get to this more probably in this week's episode on Friday, because I don't know. I thought this was some other video, but bear with me 1 second. That's the wrong video. Okay, all right, here we go. Sorry about that. I produced the show by myself. So this is Senator Chris Coons of, I believe, Connecticut. Oh, Delaware. This is Joe Biden's home state. That's right. I strongly condemn this move by the chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court to apply for arrest warrants against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Defense Minister Gallant. They all had to send out. This is the tweet. Every member of Congress had to send out pretty much, because if they don't send it out, then there's a lot of outrage, and AIPAC will probably take away their money and stuff. So let's see. Here we go. This is what I wanted to. So, as you guys could see here, this is a bunch of. All right, so, oops, I screwed up. Oops, no. Oh, no, this is right, yeah. Bear with me again. I'm producing the show myself. All right, this is as close I can get it, but yeah, these are a bunch of representatives in the House and the Senate. Pretty much something out the exact same tweet. Grace Meng, there's no equivalence between Israel and Hamas. Response to October 7th attack. The ICC has no jurisdiction to issue warrants against Israel in this case. I will always stand with Israel in our shared goal to defeat Hamas and bring the hostages home. Yeah, except they're also the ICC had no jurisdiction against Russia, but you guys all jumped up and down in the air talking about how great the ICC was then, huh? Let's get to Mullen here, Senator Mullen. There's no more equivalence, again, the same word, between genocidal Hamas terrorists and the Jewish people who are defending themselves from mass extermination. The Biden administration needs to grow a spine and condemn this action. America stands with Israel. So Hamas is somehow trying to do another Holocaust. Any evidence for that, or are you just, you're just trying to suck up to AIPAC? All right, now we get to Representative Greg Stanton. The ICC prosecutor's decision to target Israel's democratically elected leadership is misguided and shameful. There's absolutely no moral equivalence, again, between the state of Israel and Hamas, a brutal terrorist group. I guarantee you, the AIPAC wrote these tweets out, sent it to them, and they all just tweeted it out with no question whatsoever. Because they want that AIPAC money, and they don't want AIPAC to go against them, which is why they do exactly what they're told. Now let's get to the House Foreign Affairs Committee Twitter account. Any warrants targeting Israel officials should be rescinded immediately. I stand with POTUS Biden in opposition to the decision by the ICC to target Israel. There's absolutely no equivalence between Israel and Hamas. Again, equivalence. So that's the that's the word that, there's no comparison, basically. Now let's get to Senator Bob Casey. I condemn this dangerous move of the ICC. There's no equivalence between Israel and the terrorist organization Hamas. And I fear this will undermine continued negotiations to free the Israeli hostages. So again, same word. Debbie Wasserman Schultz. There's no equivalence between Israel and Hamas, equating a democratic state with a terror group that rapes, murders, and delights in the act of genocide and maximizes civilian deaths demonstrates the ICC's gaping moral failure. No other nation's been held to this standard. Sure, Russia had the ICC went after Russia at the behest of the West, and none of you had any problem with it. In fact, you were all celebrating the ICC then. Senator Tom Cotton, the International Criminal Court's moral equivalence between Israel and Hamas is outrageous. I introduce legislation to sanction the ICC rogue prosecutor in his office. Now, the ICC prosecutor is rogue because they dare go after a Western government, or at least a government supported by the West. There's another representative here. Israel is fighting for freedom. Hamas is terrorizing innocents. The ICC implication of moral equivalence between them bankrupts the credibility of finding of its investigation. Mario Diaz-Balart, who's a congressman, I believe. There's another reason the ICC has no credibility, as it seeks to issue arrest warrants for alleged war crimes against members of Israel's government. Not only does the ICC have no jurisdiction here, again, they had jurisdiction with Russia, who's not a party at the Rome Treaty, but all of a sudden now they have no jurisdiction. Israel's not a part of the Rome Treaty, but they have no jurisdiction with Israel. They have jurisdiction with Russia. Please have it make sense for me. It makes no sense. But the shameful attempt to create a moral equivalency between Hamas terrorists targeting civilians for torture, rape, and murder versus Israel defending itself is absurd. Now to get to Adam Schiff. The ICC announcement today is not only misguided and repugnant, it's also a terrible overreach of the body's authority. Again, they had the authority of Russia, even though they're not a party to the Rome Treaty. That all of a sudden now with Israel is also not a party to the Rome Treaty. Now they have the overreach of the body's authority. See how convenient that is. It depends whether you're friends with the U.S. or not. If you're friends with the U.S., the ICC has no authority. If you're adversary to the U.S., the ICC all of a sudden does have the authority to go after you. See how that works? To make a false equivalence between the actions of democratically elected government, those Hamas, and brutal terrorist organizations, absurd. Over and over again, it's the same thing. I think you guys get the point, because let's read Tim Scott. There's no moral equivalence between Hamas terrorism and Israel's right to self-defense. With these false allegations against Israel, the ICC is showing that it's a tool for anti-Semitic propaganda, should be taken seriously. Again, they're anti-Semitic because they dare go after the Zionist government of Israel is committing all these war crimes. All right, let's get to Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania. Requesting arrest warrants for both Israel and Hamas leaders suggests there's a moral equivalence, again, between them. There's none, and it's disgusting to suggest otherwise. The ICC credibility is now in shambles because they only have themselves to thank. So you guys get the point. There's a bunch more there I could read, but quite frankly, I'm getting tired of reading, and and my throat, I need something to drink. But nonetheless, John Fetterman, the biggest Zionist in the Senate. Both Democrats and Republicans are in agreement. You can't go after Israel for war crimes. You can't go after Hamas. That's perfectly fine. But you cannot go after Israel because they're a friend of the United States, and we will do whatever it takes to protect them, even if it means invading the Hague, the Netherlands, in the Hague. I'm not kidding, by the way. The U.S. has a law that was passed during the Bush administration. I don't remember the exact name of the law, but I think it's called, if you bear with me for a second, I can look it up. U.S. Invasion oops, of the Hague. All right, the American Service Members Protection Act. That's what it's called. So I want to show you guys this real quick because I'm not making this up, by the way. So, so let me make this a little bigger. You guys can actually see it. All right. Oops. Oops. Wait. Wait a minute. Bear with me 1 second. All right, here we go. Why isn't this working the way I want it to? Okay. You know what? I'm just going to read it because I don't know why it's not, showing on the screen properly here. But yeah, here it is. The U.S. invasion. It's called the American Service Members Protection Act. The authorization led to the act being colloquially nicknamed the Hague Invasion Act, as the act allows the U.S. president, in order to order military action as such an invasion of the Netherlands, where the Hague is located, to protect American officials and military personnel from prosecution or rescue them from custody. So the American Service Members Protection Act basically is like, oh yeah, I mean, if the Hague and the ICC and the Hague dare arrest any U.S. official or U.S. military member for war crimes, we're allowed under U.S. law to invade that country and rescue those service members or U.S. officials from prosecution. You see how that works? The United States is straight up saying, yeah, we have the authority to go in and invade you, and we do have that authority. If we don't like it, that's too damn bad, because we will do that. We will protect our... All right, so I want to go back down here. Now the Republican Party. Now let's get to this more about. This is more about Israel and stuff. The Republicans introduced a bill that will give the IDF, the same benefits as a U.S. citizen serving in the U.S. military. All right, so this is unbelievable. Treatment of service in Israeli Defense Forces in general, for purposes of this chapter, to the extent practicable, the service of a citizen in the United States in the Israeli Defense Force shall be treated the same manner as a service in a uniform service. In other words, if you serve in the Israeli Defense Force, you get the exact same benefits, and you get the exact same benefits and the exact same treatment as if you serve in the U.S. military. This is a bill that Republicans introduced, and I'm sure that Democrats can't wait to vote for it. Is all Washington has agreed. We are the United States of Israel. Like, we're not. We're the United States of Israel, ladies and gentlemen. That's basically what that the U.S. is saying here over and over and over again. Let's see. Now let's watch more Israeli people here real quick. So, Israeli madman is so dedicated to the starving and children of Gaza, he jumps in front of a moving aid truck. And this is literal, by the way. So let's watch this. Look at this. Look at this guy right there. He's just in front of an aid truck there, desperately trying to stop it. Yeah, let me be a dumbass, an absolute dumbass, and get in front of a big ass truck expecting to stop it. He's lucky the truck didn't run him over, murder, and kill him. So yeah, and that's not really bright, and they're so dedicated to this, to the genocide and stuff, that they're desperately trying to stop these trucks from getting into the country. So let's more of this, more. Oops. we have RFK Jr. now defending the IDF, which is, of course, he's always going to do that because RFK Jr. is a good,
I don't believe that
he's a good stooge for the IDF and for the Israeli government. Even though he's running as a third party candidate, he might as well be he might as well run as a Democrat or a Republican because he completely, totally agrees with protecting the Zionist government in Israel and their war crimes.
I don't believe that there's a genocide going on.
Oh,
I don't think Israel's intention is genocide.
No, of course, they're not trying to do genocide. And of course, Israel's intention is not to do a genocide because, God, they're by definition, they're the good guys because they're allies with the United States. Oops.
I don't believe there's any evidence of genocide. There is genocide going on in the Mideast. But it's a genocide of Jews and it's a genocide of Christians, and nobody's complaining about it for some reason. And there are much worse wars than what's happening in Gaza right now. But for some reason, people don't want to complain unless it's Jews who can be blamed. The idea of saying that there's a genocide going on in Israel because people die in war, and that.
Yeah, people die in war, guys. It's not a genocide. I mean, this is basically what he's saying. It's collateral damage. The innocent people who died, collateral damage. Collateral damage. Israel's not purposely targeting civilians, guys. It's all accidental. They're collateral damage. They have a war against Hamas. Unbelievable.
In every war that's going on in the world today, there are civilians dying, and the average death rate, civilian to combatant death rate, according to the United Nations and to the Institute for the Study of Urban Warfare at West Point, is about 9 to 1. But in Gaza, it's about 1 to 1. So they've achieved they protect it in the most challenging conditions. The Israeli government the IDF has protected civilians better than any army in history. John Spencer said it has done more to protect civilians under more difficult circumstances than any army in history.
Yeah, see, and they've done everything they can to protect civilians, even though they're purposely targeting them and they're killing them and all this other stuff. But yeah, they're trying everything they can to protect them. So, all right. So yeah, let's get to now. As everybody knows, there's the Israeli government, Netanyahu, is starting to invade Rafah. The ICC and the World Court ordered Israel not to invade Rafah, and I was like, yeah, you can order all you want. Trust me, they're going to ignore that order because Israel has protection in the United States. And Israel is like a spoiled little brat child of the United States. Israel, Saudi Arabia, they're like the two biggest spoiled childs of the U.S. If the U.S. doesn't do what they want, they get pissed off and they start talking crap about the U.S. or they start threatening the U.S. Saudi Arabia is the oil prices. They control a lot of the oil and, they set prices. That's how they threaten them. Israel, they use AIPAC. AIPAC threatens the politicians and they all fall in line, do exactly what AIPAC tells them to do. So, yeah, let's get to the World Court here. I got a little clip for you guys. This is the World Court ordering Israel to halt Rafah offensive.
The court considered that, in conformity with its obligations under the Genocide Convention, Israel must immediately halt its military offensive and any other action in the Rafah governorate which may inflict on the Palestinian group in Gaza conditions of life that could bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. The court recalls that in its order of January 26, 2024, it ordered Israel inter alia to, I quote, take effective measures to prevent the destruction and ensure the preservation of evidence related to allegations of acts within the scope of Article 2 and Article 3 of the Genocide Convention. End of quote.
So there you go.
Andrew Wiggins has got.
No. So yeah. So that was accidental. I didn't mean to play that. That just played by itself. But yeah, there you go. Israel was ordered to stop the Rafah offensive. And then what do? They don't stop the Rafah offensive. And in fact, they got into a little skirmish with with Egypt, with the Egyptian military. There's a shootout between them, and the IDF managed to kill an Egyptian soldier. I'm like, oh no. Yes, oh no, it's a disaster. It's an absolute disaster. So it's an absolute disaster because now all of a sudden you have a situation here. Excuse me 1 second. Why is this not working? Okay, good. It's working now. Yeah, you have a situation here where Israel has put themselves in a tough spot because now that they accidentally killed this Egyptian soldier, excuse me, now all of a sudden, they're going to be in a lot of trouble. So let's go. Oops, not that. It's an old one. Here we go. So this is really small. Bear with me 1 second while I make it bigger. Okay. Oh. Okay, well, bear with me 1 second. I accidentally closed this. I didn't mean to do that. All right, here we go. Yep, we're good. Sorry about that. Again, I'm producing the show myself, so mistakes happen like that. Egyptian guard killed in shooting on Rafah border. Israel and Egypt are investigating. This is 17 hours ago from yesterday. A member of Egypt security forces was killed in a shooting incident near the Rafah border crossing between Egypt and Gaza Strip on Monday. Egypt and the Gaza Strip, an investigation underway. Egypt's military spokesman said in a statement on Monday. Israel's military has said earlier that it's investigating reports of an exchange of fire between Israeli and Egyptian soldiers. A few hours ago, on Monday, a shooting incident occurred between an Egyptian border. The incident under review and discussions are being held with the Egyptians, the Israeli military said in a statement. Later on Monday, Egypt warned against compromising the security and safety of its security forces. High-level source told Egypt state-linked Al Kahira News, adding that Egypt will take necessary measures to prevent the incident. To prevent the incident from reoccurring. An Egyptian soldier stationed in the watchtower reacted seeing armored vehicle carrying Israeli troops cross the boundary line near the border while the soldiers pursued and killed several Palestinians, two Egyptian sources said. The soldier opened fire and Israeli forces fired back, killing him, the sources said, sparking an exchange of gunfire between the two sides. Several Israeli soldiers were wounded and the force fell back, and one Egyptian was wounded, the source says. Israel seized control of the Rafah border crossing from Gaza side the border earlier this month, has stepped up military offensive in the area, drawing strong criticism from Egypt. So, yeah, I'm not going to read the whole article because, but you guys get the point. All right, let's do that. So apparently, the IDF accidentally drove into Egypt's border while pursuing Palestinians. So they didn't say Hamas, they say Palestinians. So they were killing these Palestinians, and this Egyptian soldier decided to fire because they were invading the territory. So the Israeli soldiers fired back, killed the guy, and then that led to exchanges between the Israeli and Egyptian military. If this is true, and this Israeli IDF murdered this Egyptian military member, Israel may be stuck in a war with Egypt that, they're going to be in trouble because either there's going to be some kind of treaty, some kind of deal, or LCC's had as president of Egypt no choice but to invade or but to start fighting a war with Israel. This isn't good. I mean, the IDF is so reckless that they think they can do whatever they want and get away with it. Even basically going to Egyptian territory. Why would you do that? I mean, that's so stupid. So let's do this. All right, here we go. This is a quick little video here. What we know, this is from This is uploaded 5 hours ago, so it's more recent. What we know after the Egyptian soldier is killed in clash with Israeli troops at Gaza border. It's from Bloomberg podcast. So let's see.
Israeli version was that the Egyptian began the problem. The Egyptians say it's the Israelis who began the
Oh
problem.
yeah, the Israelis are blaming the Egyptians. No, they shot at us first. We didn't shoot at them.
So I don't know who's right. What we do know is there's an Egyptian soldier dead, and that Egypt is very nervous about Israel's presence right there. And
As they should be. Israel, the IDF is very reckless, and allegedly they already accidentally invaded Egyptian territory, which is why the soldier fired, because they were in Egyptian territory. So the IDF is very reckless. Netanyahu lets them get away with whatever because he wants that to clear Gaza and to clear that territory in order to bring the settlers back.
Meanwhile, of course, there was that terrible thing last night in which Israel went after two Islamist militants, got them, but beyond that, set fire in its operation to a bunch of tents where poor people had been sheltering, and 45 people are dead. So it was a very tough day.
This is something that Benjamin Netanyahu has described as a tragic mistake, and it's drawn condemnation from outside of Israel as well. How significant is this?
I think that's a good question. Historically, when Israel has carried out operations in southern Lebanon or in Gaza, it usually came to an end when there was a terrible mistake like this in which a bunch of civilians were killed inadvertently. This war, of course, has been of a very different nature. Israel has declared it to be an existential struggle that it can't stop until there's complete defeat of Hamas. But there is so much pressure on Israel, including internally now, the notion that really whether or not they quote unquote finish in Rafah will not end the war, it will not end Hamas anyway. It's not out of the question that it'll be a significant day. I will say that Netanyahu, in addition to calling it an error, tragic error, did say that that's not going to stop him from finishing the war the way he wants it. So it's hard to know.
The images circulating on social media of the fire in that tent city, truly horrifying for.
Yeah, I mean, every day, like I went on Joe McGaha's podcast, Two Cats in the Land of Dogs. It's a Spanish-speaking podcast for the most part, but there's also that we did an experimental episode of half English, half Spanish. So I'll probably link that in the description box below in the chat if you guys want to check that out. And we were talking about the brutal images we see every day on X or Twitter, and it's just horrifying. It's like I scroll through my X feed, and every single day there's some kind of horrifying tragedy. It's like I'm like I don't, it's like every day for me at least, you just want to take a bottle of alcohol and just bury yourself in it because it's just horrifying, absolutely horrifying, the images. So let's see here. I mean, it's just horrifying. I mean, I'm horrified every day. It's like, when will this goddamn war end? And I mean, I don't see it ever really ending. So let's see. Where is... Let's see. Whoops. Where's again? I can't organize my Okay. Yeah. So now the question is whether the rest of the world will honor these warrants or not against Netanyahu if there's warrants issued, because as the U.S. as a lot of officials in the United States and politicians says that the rest of the world should not recognize these warrants and arrest Netanyahu if they happen to go into their country. So it turns out, oops. Well, yeah, that's the wrong one. There we go. It turns out that most of the world is kind of ignoring this. Germany is joining France and Norway will abide by ICC and arrest Netanyahu if he dares step foot in the country. So
an die Entscheidung des Internationalen Strafgerichts. Wird sich die Bundesregierung auf jeden Fall.
It's in German, so we'll have to read the subtitles.
Wird sich die Bundesregierung auf jeden Fall an die Entscheidung des Internationalen Strafgerichtshofs halten und diese Entscheidung umsetzen?
Wie Sie so schön formuliert haben, ist das eine hypothetische Frage. Deshalb nehme ich einen halben Schritt zurück und sage, grundsätzlich sind wir Unterstützer des Internationalen Strafgerichtshofes und dabei bleibt es auch.
Wenn ich nochmal nachfragen darf, zur grundsätzlichen Unterstützung gehört ja, dass man Urteile des Internationalen Strafgerichtshofs dann auch ernst nimmt und umsetzt. Und deswegen meine Frage, das war jetzt gar nicht eine hypothetische, habe ich extra keine Namen genannt, sondern hält sich die Bundesregierung an das, was der Internationale Strafgerichtshof entscheidet?
Ich dachte, ich hätte durch meine normative Setzung die Frage beantwortet. Ansonsten, wenn Sie da noch Fragen haben, natürlich.
Also,
ja, wir halten uns an Recht und Gesetz.
Yeah, so why do the when somebody speaks German, it's always like, oh, they sound angry. It's like, for me, it's like, why do they sound so angry every time they speak? Like, let's see, I already played all that. So, yeah, I mean, the bottom line is those guys. I mean, it's just outrageous. It all what Israel is doing is just absolutely outrageous. And anyways, there's some news on the Julian Assange front. That also needs to be discussed real quick before we kind of wrap up here today. No. Julian Assange was given the opportunity to appeal based on the First Amendment in the UK. So there's going to be one more. There's going to be one more hearing on this. There's going to be one more hearing on this because the U.S. because the court has ruled in favor of Assange. So let's do that. Whoops. Share this. All right. This is from The Guardian. Julian Assange wins right to appeal against extradition to the U.S. Judges had deferred a decision whether Assange could take his case to another appeal hearing. Julian Assange has been granted leave to mount a fresh appeal against extradition on the U.S. for charges of leaking military secrets, and will be able to challenge assurances from American officials on how a trial will be conducted. Two judges had deferred a decision in March whether Assange, who's trying to avoid being prosecuted in the U.S. on espionage charges relating to blah, 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 blah. On that occasion, the justices ruled that he'd bring an appeal against extradition on 3 grounds unless satisfactory assurances given by the U.S. Let's see. There were gaps of relief. The Assange team. Yeah, so basically the Assange team is allowed to appeal based on the First Amendment, and the United States is arguing that since Assange is a U.S. citizen, he really doesn't have First Amendment rights, which is ridiculous. But the U.S. I don't really think that the United States actually wants to extradite Assange, especially during an election year. Because if they actually are able to extradite him, then they have to try him. They can't just leave him in prison. And, and that would distract from all the Trump charges and all, they want to focus all the media attention on Trump. It's like Trump has 91 criminal charges and he's a felon and he's the worst thing to happen in the United States ever in history. And, all the resistance liberals, they want to focus on Trump, that Assange is an inconvenience to them. So yeah, I don't see the U.S. actually wanting to Assange. So yeah, and also Trump is very serious considering pardoning Assange, which is ridiculous. But same old crap. So all right, that's gonna do it for this episode, Angel in the Afternoon. Hope everybody enjoyed. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.